What is going on, Madden NFL fans? Welcome to the fifth episode. Now we're getting up here on these episodes, guys, of the Hard Knocks podcast, where we teach you how to take your Madden gaming career to the next level by interviewing successful tournament gamers who have developed their game into some of the best in the community. Guys, today's podcast, we're talking all about Madden 15, how to get better at Madden 15, and how to become that tournament level player that I know you all want to become. We have a really special guest coming on today, guys. And you guys probably read it on my post. If you guys follow me on Twitter, this guy, in my opinion, is the player to watch for Madden 15. The winner of the Mutt Invitational PlayStation 4. BU Tweazy, thanks for coming on the show, man. How the heck are you doing today?
Doing good, man. Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here and just talk some Madden.
Yeah, man. Love talking Madden, and I really can't wait to talk about it with you. I've said it all year, ever since the Mud Invitational, man. Just the way you talk about the game, the speed at which you say it. It's like me, when you get excited about something, you start talking about it really, really quick. And I just picked up on that watching like the interview after the game. I mean, the way you wanted to point stuff out, the way you wanted to, really, try to get it all out is you had all that excitement and energy into you, and that's something I can really identify with because that's kind of my same kind of mentality. But real quick here, some of the guys may not know who you are. Some of the guys may not. Obviously, you're newer to the competitive scene. So if you could just give us a little bit of a background as to kind of your career path, what led you to become the player that you are today?
Yeah, so I started, they kind of talked about it a little bit in the Invitational. I started in Madden 13 really late. I started around Easter of Madden 13, so kind of when the year was winding down a little bit. I just kind of had walked around my dorm room, had some close friends that really liked Madden, and I kept playing them, and I just didn't understand why I wasn't winning, why I was throwing all these picks and things like that. And I just kind of decided that this is something I wanted to pursue and get good at. And it was more just for competition purposes to feed my competitive side against these guys that I was playing. And as it grew, I started realizing that they weren't very much competition for me anymore. I started taking it online, and I played Mutt because that's what they all really played. And I did head-to-head a little bit too. I had a decent record on Madden 13, but it was nothing crazy. It was mostly just looking up YouTube plays, the stock fades, 4-3 over plus, Mike Sam 3-seam A gap, just things that a lot of people knew. And I realized in Madden 25 that I wanted to take it to the next level when it came out. So I played current gen a lot. I think my Mutt record on there was about 600 wins and 70 losses on there, but it really wasn't anything great. I had like 3 or 4 plays that I thought were pretty effective and one decent blitz out of there that it was something that I was having fun with. But when next gen came out, I decided that I just want to be really competitive. I want to be good, and I just didn't stop until that happened. And I mean, just found the buck sleep and fell in love.
Definitely agree with you, man. That's kind of a similar. That's really a similar way that I kind of came on the scene. It was the idea that I wanted to be good at the game, and so what I did, I literally, like you said, subscribed to every Madden commentator in the business in Madden 13 or in Madden 12, tail end of Madden 12, beginning of Madden 13. Literally, I would come home from work or from school, and I would flip on the game while the game was loading up. I'd watch Madden Tips, quick tip of the day, or a Madden TV, or something like that. Watch that. Try to digest as much content as possible. I think I bought a lot of ebooks. I bought some guides, and but it was all around. I just want to see what they're doing. I just want to see what they're doing and compare it to what I'm doing. And it was all around that kind of competitive aspect, trying to grow my skill level. Ended up somehow, some way, I got an email that Mad Tips was live streaming, and so I went ahead and went over and checked out a live stream. I don't even know that I knew what a live stream was at that point. I mean, that's how little I knew about the online world in general. So I came over there. It said in order to view this, you got to make an account. I made an account, logged into my name here, started watching Gibbs playing, and Gibbs asked the chat. He's like, hey, does anybody want to come on and play us in a game? And I was like, oh, let me play. And this was, I was a senior in high school. All I cared about was getting to play on the internet. I didn't even quite realize who I was playing. And anyway, ended up playing pretty well. Ended up winning like 40-21. And from that point on, it was kind of like a switch turned on. It was like, if you really want to be good at this game, you can really do it. I mean, look what you just did to one of the best players in the Madden community, and that wasn't even after getting hardcore involved. Well, how much better do you think you could be? Now, at the time, obviously, you think that it's a big deal. You just beat S. Gibbs, and then, of course, now that I know what I know now, looking back, obviously, it wasn't that big of a deal at the time. It wasn't like it was, it wasn't like it was for money. It wasn't like he was actually probably even trying his hardest to play, but it was that little affirmation that I needed to get me involved in the community. And from there, my competitive juices took it the rest of the way. And for me, it's not about winning a tournament. It's not about beating S. Gibbs or any of those guys. All it's about doing is getting better. It's all about getting better. It's all about making myself a better player at this point. At this point in Madden 25, I don't give a crap if I win or lose. All I care about is getting better for Madden 15. And when Madden 15 comes out, then I'm kind of prepping. That's going to be the opportunity for me to really try to hopefully push myself as a player and get a lot better at the game. But I love your story and I can identify a lot with it. But real quick here, I guess you said you took it onto the online community, and Next Gen Madden was kind of where you kind of took it to the next level, if you will. And I guess what I'm getting at here is once you got involved that deep, once you found out that you could be that good, how did you go about preparing for competition with those elite gamers?
So, especially for the Mud Invitational tournament, any sort of, and this is different than a lot of people would prepare for just like an online game or something. Any sort of information I could find, I was watching it, I was studying it. I had 2 games of game film for D Beavers before the finals. I don't know if I told him that or not, but I did. Too Nice was the first person I played, and he posts YouTube videos all the time. I watched almost every video I could between when I knew that and then. But it comes down to refinement of what you're doing and playing a lot of games and getting a lot of different looks from a lot of different people. I have a lot of games logged between Gen 3 and Gen 4 this year. And when you play that many games, you're going to find people running all different types of stuff. And you'll find what stops you and what doesn't, what you like to play against and what you don't. And once you find your weaknesses and your holes, you can sort of start to correct that. So earlier in the year when I found Buck Sweep, that formation, I literally only just ran the ball. I didn't know how to pass out of it. I didn't know I could run a read option against 3-4 solid. I didn't know anything, and I would lose some games because I didn't realize what I could do other than that. So it comes down to refinement of your skills and opening up your strategy because you want to play the best players. So I started streaming, and I would take challenges from everybody before challenges from anybody before the finals. Regardless of who they were, just simply because I wanted to play the best players because you can't get better unless you're playing competition that challenges you. So I wanted the people who were going to stop the Buck Sweep to make me have to pass the ball, which eventually won me the game because I didn't really run the Buck Sweep very much. I ran maybe 4 or 5 times for positive yardage. That was anything worthwhile that was more than 1 to 2 yards.
That's a great point, man, and I really want to bounce off that because, I've been talking about you for a couple weeks now, and some of the feedback I've gotten is, he only runs Buck Sweep or he only does this, and I feel like that's a common criticism that everybody's going to give to anybody that has success. But let's take a look real quick here. This is kind of what I want to do with this show specifically because I got the opportunity to interview you. Real quick, I want to we're going to get back to these players in just a moment, but real quick, I just want everyone at home to kind of think about this. In Madden 13, the Madden Challenge Virgin Gaming Series winner was Problem. Not even arguably, the GOAT, the greatest player of all time, undisputed, 3 Madden Challenge titles, a phenomenal player, and a consistency at its finest. Now, what did he do on offense? He ran bunch quads, and he put them on a fade or a streak and a drag. It was basically Patswell drag from a spread formation. It's the same thing that everybody did all year. What did he do on defense? He ran 4-6 bear under, sent 6, got 2 free. Basically the same thing that everybody else did in the tournament. What did he do in Madden 08, or I think I want to say it's 08. It's either 08 or 10. I sometimes get the years mixed up, but he ran sting pinch every single play on defense. All right, let's take another example. Warhawk, arguably one of the best, most consistent players in the last 2, 3 years. Kind of, haven't heard from much from him this year, but last year and the year before that, really good showings in the Madden Challenge. What did he run? Pat's wheel drag. He actually ran the play Pat's wheel drag. And what do you do on defense? What do you do defensively? A lot of that 4-3 over plus, basic edge pressure concepts. Send six, get two free. The same mentality that Problem had. What this year? What did S. Gibbs run on defense on current gen? The big nickel bear, because the big nickel bear was able to get pressure, and it wasn't just able to get pressure; it was able to get really fast pressure at the quarterback, and you only had to send 6 guys. But he basically ran crash 3 every play. A guy like Zan, we want to knock the buck sweeps of the community like Tweazy, but we don't want to think about the fact that Zan, who most people would say is a top tier player and a pretty good individual himself, and I obviously, I think that all these players are great players. I think that all these players are good for the community. But Zan on X-Gen Madden, it was buck sweep, it was inverted veer, it was that kind of an offense. It's the same style of attack that Tweezy has. So I guess what I'm getting at is sometimes I struggle with people who kind of pinpoint tournament players and try to call them out because they only run one play, when in reality, if you would have watched the game as I did this morning, and I did of course live on that Friday evening, it wasn't buck sweep. Buck sweep was, it was 4 yards. It was the threat of buck sweep that opened up the passing game. But it was the, like you said just a second ago, it's the ability to refine. Problem on the streaks and fades. Obviously, he had the streaks and fades, but he also had the playmaker drag. He had the the QB scramble that he could do. He had a whole plethora of other plays that he could have gone to. Every now and then in Madden 13, you would see him go to the gun empty giant and do the tight end streaks from there. Different, having the ability to adjust is something that people like Tweezy and people who are in the spotlight don't always get their credit for. But I think that it's a huge mistake by the spectators. And could you talk a little bit about your ability to adjust and the importance of the ability to adjust as a tournament player?
Yeah, so especially in this day and age of Madden, and I say that like I've played for 10 years, but I really haven't. But from all the stories that I've heard and all the things with shake blitzing in the past and nanos and all these things, just rocket catches, just unstoppable things, and you rarely find that this year. I think I could count on my hands how many rocket catches there are, nanos that I don't think exist anymore. And so when you come up against these high-level competitors, they're going to find a way to stop what you're doing eventually with enough practice and knowing, unless you just hop in a game with them and they've never seen you before, you might catch them a couple times, but they're going to eventually adjust. So you have to have the counter to their adjustment. So the reason that I did the fade on the left, to stop buck sweep, you can't run man, because man does stop that fade. If you have a man press, you're not going to throw that fade ever. So you have to go zone against it, and that fade, those outside fades have been pretty popular this year with a lot of people, and they destroy zone. There are a couple things you can do to try and slow them down, but if you have the right reads and the right other routes to be a combo to your fade, it's going to be very tough to stop. I know I laughed with Gibbs until about 3 or 4 in the morning, literally in practice mode after we played a couple games, and he was trying to figure out a counter to both of those things, and it wasn't consistent by any means. And I mean, Gibbs is one of the best people at labbing defenses and labbing counters to anything that people are doing. And I know even he was having problems with it. So for preparing in these tournaments, you don't want to necessarily just make the most complex 70-play scheme that you have. You can make it 2 to 3 formations that are just hell to stop, and just make it so that the opponent knows what you're going to do, but literally just can't stop you, just can't even contain you. And that, if you can do that to somebody, you're going to win so many more games than just having the most fancy scheme that you can imagine.
1,000% agree with you, man. Real quick, probably talked about this a little bit more than I wanted to, but my biggest problem is sometimes I get a little bit antsy. I don't want to do buck sweep because everybody runs buck sweep, or I don't want to do the fades because everybody runs the fades. So I develop my own kind of thing. But like you said, it's not necessarily about the scheme. every year you got plays that work. For example, shoot, I can't even remember. I can't remember the exact quote. So this is going to be a paraphrasing quote. But basically, this was the problem with Tom Landry when he first started coaching the Dallas Cowboys. Was he wanted to make everything so complex that it would work against any defense in the game, but the quarterback wasn't able to read it by the time the pressure, because here's the thing, you can't simulate in-game competitive juices. You can't simulate that pressure, that heavy pressure that defenses are going to be sending at you. So you have to have arguably you have to have the most simplistic offense as possible to give you the maximum ability to read the defense. Because if you could read the defense out of Tom Landry's system, then you would beat every defense because the plays were set up to beat every defense. But the reality is, for the quarterback to look on all the way to the right, then all the way to the left, then all the way to then come back to the middle, it's just a lot of different nuances that you're going to have to do. And so one of the things that I think I take from you there was, as you're going about preparing for your scheme, as you're going about preparing for competition, you try to find a couple of plays, but you run them with perfection. You know what beats them, you know what doesn't beat them, and that is how you make a read. I know a lot of people criticized you for running the fade against off coverage and the buck sweep against man coverage, but that was a read, and it may sound like a very simple read, but it was an effective read that obviously had results.
Yeah,
So,
and I mean, I just go back to the 3rd and 13 call buck sweep to eventually that won me the championship. That was just, I saw the guys were pressed up against him. It wasn't 3-4 solid because the guy was lined up directly over Dan Deerdorf, and I had to run it. Just
yeah.
once you develop that sort of confidence, you make those on the fly decisions, and that's what separates you.
Yeah, man. I really hope that you talk a little bit more about this. You just said, I love what you just said there. Once you have that confidence, once you have that consistency, one of the things that I guess I struggle with a little bit, and I overthink a lot of things. I tend to overanalyze. I tend to overcritique myself, especially. And so for example, one of my offenses I've been running all year was Arizona. And so I was running Arizona, I was running the spread, and then if I got a press read, I would go into the tight formation. If I got a off coverage read, then I would adjust off that, and it was all basically revolving around where the defenders are so that I could attack. So, for example, if you're base aligned, then I'm going to go to this play, or if you're man aligned, then I'm going to go to this play, or if you're pressing, then I'm going to go to this play. And all these different reads off of one another, all this progression. It's a really good in my opinion, it's really effective. It's really good. It's consistent. But the problem was I ended up playing in a very laggy game one time in a Mutthead tourney, and I hadn't played all day. It was my first game of the day. I wasn't really I just wasn't at my peak performance. Ended up playing somebody I should have beat. Got lagged, and I got tackled by my offensive tackle like 3 times in the game. The offense was fine. There was no real problem with it. The problem was when I got stopped, it was almost like at the most inopportune times. The 4th and 5, I got tackled by my tackle, or the, things like that. And so I ended up being 7-3, and I lost. And the only thing that I felt like I should have won was I had like 2nd and goal from the 2, and I have this play that I post on my YouTube channel. I think it's basically in routes. So you can get a spectacular catch animation from the stock smart routed in routes in the red zone inside the 5. And anyway, for whatever reason, my guy decided to stop running the in route, and I didn't even need the spectacular catch. I mean, he was wide open. Ended up stopped running, didn't catch the ball. That was the game, 7-3. I lose. And I guess from that point, I don't know what happened, but something in me said you have to switch, because the Arizona playbook doesn't have that goal line scoring option that I felt like I needed, even though it does, even though it has the single back ace, the snap throw zigs, the simple plays that we can use. But for me, I guess like I said, I overanalyze. I always want that cute play, that money, not even that money play, but just the just that unique play that you feel that makes you stand out. And so anyway, I switched to Atlanta, and I was running the bunch. And I can run the bunch. The only problem with Atlanta is I wasn't comfortable running the bunch consistently. I've been running the spread. So the way you read the defense out of a bunch is way different than the way you would read it out of a spread because there's different tells, there's different strengths and weaknesses to different. Anyway, so I come out in the bunch and I was running Z spot, but I run it a special way, and it's pretty effective. Now that I've played with the book more, I know how to run it. But this was literally, I mean, like right after that, I jumped into another tourney game with Atlanta, and I had ran Atlanta. I've never ran Atlanta, and so anyway, long story short, I ended up getting beaten that game, 16-14. And wasn't necessarily even my offense's. I think it was more my offensive fault than it was my defense. But anyway, it's just I didn't feel like I could pass the ball consistently, and sometimes I get really tightly wound up, really kind of conservative when I play tournament games because I know that the stakes are so much higher than if you're just playing a regular game. And can you talk about kind of how you overcome and kind of how you get past that in a tournament atmosphere?
Yeah, so I mean, and I'm not even necessarily the best example. In that last game against Beavers, I had labbed 3 or 4 different formations other than what I ran of just straight passing plays that I thought were just going to tear up any zone that he ran at me. Because I knew he ran a lot of zone, and I was scared to run him. And I mean, I only had the ball 2 times, granted, because the punt return kind of took away an offensive possession, but. Yeah, so when you're going into those tournament games, you just got to stick to what you're good at. Don't try to impress the other person because they're not going to be impressed if you run all this new stuff because they never knew your offense before. They're not going to be impressed with like, oh, he took me to overtime and I still beat him by 3, something like that. It's all about at the end of the day, it's all about getting the W. And you can say like that you want to be different, you want to be creative because we all want to have that money play that no one can stop and no one else runs and no one else knows how to do it like us. But yeah, I run buck sweep like half the Madden community, but it works and it's effective. And you can't let a loss or anything like that take you away from your scheme because, like you were saying, you had been effective with the Arizona book all year, and it sounds like you're pretty effective with the ATL book now. But that one loss, just because laggy game, bad reads, doesn't make you a bad player. It doesn't mean that you're worse than the guy you just played. I guarantee you play him 10 times, you lose. That's the one time you lose out of 10. And that's what I just want to tell you guys. If you hop in a game with, say you just hop in a game and randomly Farrells or Gibbs is playing Mutt, and you get crushed, and that's just because they send nickel strong at you and you don't know how to deal with edge pressure. I mean, it is what it is. That's a learning experience. You don't quit out of that game. You're going to learn so much more by sticking in, getting your butt whooped, than anything.
Yeah, man, I love what you just said, and obviously I want to clarify. Obviously I think that what Tweezy's getting at there is not necessarily the idea that you don't want to the idea that you don't want to just keep doing the same thing over and over again if it's not working, but the idea that you have success with a playbook. And this is something that Zan does, which is mad props to him because I don't know if I'd ever be able to do this. I mean, I know I wouldn't because I'm just so over analytical and I break down so much on my channel. There'd be no possible way that I would ever do this. But what Zan does is he picks one playbook literally like now. When he goes down, plays the game at EA, he plays the game and gets when they give feedback, he finds a playbook that he likes, starts to prepare now. Obviously, something like for you guys, and even me, we would obviously be doing this when the demo dropped. But basically, he finds a playbook that he likes and just starts working and works it all year long and milks it for, he runs it. And even though it may not have that power play or something, that's his thing, and he runs it to perfection because he develops and develops and develops and develops and develops and develops so much that he knows how to adjust. And so I just real quickly, I definitely agree with you on that. The idea that if you are getting, even if you're getting stomped in a game, that doesn't mean you change up your whole playbook. That doesn't mean you go away from what you've been doing all year, but you could tweak it a little bit. But obviously you want to do that in practice mode when the lights aren't on you in a big tournament battle. So
yeah. So I mean, don't necessarily. I didn't want to mislead anybody. If you're running single back ace, halfback zone weak, and it's getting stopped every play, I don't
See
want you to
followers as
necessarily
Gibbs.
just like, oh, I need to keep running this because Tweezy told me that I can't get away from what I'm doing. No, make adjustments to what you're doing. If the guy's stopping you, take what he's giving you, but next game, don't assume that that guy's going to stop what the last guy was just stopping because no one plays the game the same way as everybody else.
Exactly, man. Exactly. We were just talking about that last week. We talked last week about kind of how the idea that you want to play as many, and you already said this. I should have echoed it then, but the idea that you want to play as many people as you can possible, so that you can get as many looks as you can, so that you can be as prepared as you can. So, but guys, all of the great players in the Madden world, all the successful players, the guys that make the most success playing the game, guys like Problem, we talked about a little earlier, guys like Serious Mo, guys like Truth and Madden 12, guys like excuse me, like I said, I already said Serious Mo, this year on current gen, guys like Tweazy on next gen, guys like Gibbs. All these guys have that kind of trademark, that kind of something that they're known for. For example, Problem with the bear under, that was kind of his trademark. Serious Mo with the trips tied in was kind of his trademark. Truth with the user catching streaks in Madden 12 was kind of his thing. Gibbs is kind of always having that one play, that one power play that nobody else really kind of knows until he posts it. And I guess what I want to hear from you at this point in the show is, what are you best known for, as far as kind of what is, if someone's in a game and they see you do this, they're thinking in the back of their head, that's Tweezy. I'm playing Tweezy right now.
I mean, it's got to be the Buck sweep with, especially in Melt with those Donald Pens out wide and Dan Dierdorf in the slot. But I think it's also a combination of that and the nickel 245 DT three-man A gap. Didn't get to see it much in the Invitational Finals because Beavers had it kind of locked up, and there was something I wanted to tweak with it to flip it up to the other side so that the blocking running back on the right wouldn't block on the left. It's just something that didn't pop in my head. So don't let that happen to you guys if you're in a big game. Just kind of slow yourself down and think about what you're doing. Luckily enough, I was able to sneak away with the win without doing that adjustment. But, I think the defense has gotten me a lot more wins than running Buck sweep has.
Thank you, man. Uh, if I could jump for joy right now and not get made fun of, I would do it. I agree so much with you. Last year, and this is kind of my take. Last year, I was known for running the gun bunch PA post. That was kind of my trademark. That was kind of the play that it was my first ever breakdown. It was my first ever, tip. It was that, and it was kind of what I came known for. By the end of the year, I wasn't even running the gun bunch. It wasn't even, and it really was. It was just more of a progression as a player. I want to try out all these things, stuff like that. But more so on you. The buck sweep is a good play. It's what you're known for. But like you said, and I definitely echo it. It's not what makes you as good as you are. What makes you as good as you are is the ability to develop things like the nickel 245 A gap blitz. For me, I had a similar blitz. It was a two-man A gap blitz out of the 4-4 formation last season. It was pretty effective, and I thought at the time, it was probably the best blitz in the game because of the coverage behind it. But the thing that I'm getting at here is I wasn't really known for that. And this year I'm not really known for 4-3 under Mike Will Cross A gap pressure, but that's what actually is going to win you the games.
Yeah.
It's not necessarily the quote unquote super power play. It's that defensive play that you have that nobody else has, and the ability to develop that is what makes you good long term. But real quick here, man. Obviously, we've already been talking a little bit about the Mud Invitational. Me as a fan of your game, me as a fan of Madden, I want to talk a little bit more about the Mud Invitational. And we've already talked about kind of how you went about preparing. Watching all the tape you can, watching all the scouting tape that you can, getting your hands on as much content as you can. I think that's big for anybody. Obviously, you had your scheme and your team locked in long before the tournament. I think that's huge as well. That's something I don't always do a good job about. But real quick, man, I wish really quickly. I don't really want to talk about the punt return, to be honest. I think that's a little bit overshadowed. I think that's a little bit blown up. I don't know if it was quite as good as people think it was, because I think we both know that I think what was really effective about your game was the user catch streaks and the defensive ability that you had to really kind of cage Beavers in the beginning of the game that actually got you the chance for the punt return. So if you could talk a little bit about your mentality going into the game defensively and a little bit offensively as well.
Yeah, so defensively, not everybody really knew this because a lot of people I had been streaming and there have been YouTube videos posted about me, some negative, some positive, about my buck sweep. So a lot of people knew exactly what I was going to run, but they didn't realize that he was running the exact same playbook and the exact same scheme pretty much across the board. So I didn't have buck sweep defense. I'm glad I played Beavers in the finals because I didn't have buck sweep defense until about 2 weeks before the finals. I didn't want to think about it. I wanted to focus on my game. But I went in. I took the trio sky zone that Gibbs and Farrell's run, and I made it a little different personally, where I only had to send 3, and it was stopping buck sweep in the backfield for about a 4-yard loss. And I knew he ran strong close, and I found defense for that, sending 3. And I didn't know he ran single back ace. It was like ace tight or ace, whatever that is in the Carolina playbook that I never used.
The tight slots with
Yeah,
the
tight
track cross
slots, the
outs.
cutback. He
Yeah,
would
with
come
the
down
funnel
and,
pins.
yeah, and he would do the cutback, and I didn't catch on until really late in his touchdown drive, and I stopped that. Um, and I really
Adjustments.
just I had to contain his running game because if you watch the 2 games that he played against the first 2 competitors, put up 30, 40 points, just annihilated them because they didn't know that he was going to run the ball as effectively and as good as he was. Um, so I knew that that's what I had to do coming in, and I thought my A gap was going to be pretty effective, and he had even talked to me that he was worried about it, but I knew he had figured something out on how to try and stop it, and he did a pretty good job. There were 2 plays in particular where I knew exactly where he was going, and I was a step late from just snatching him and probably ending the game there, but I knew that defense was going to be a big deal, and I shut down his whole run game the entire game, so that's what I was aiming to do.
Yeah. Uh, definitely good stuff there. If you guys caught what he was saying, he had specific defenses for specific situations, and I think that's a huge thing. Obviously, the details behind that. I don't think that those are as valuable to you guys at this point in the season because Madden 25 is closing down. We're getting ready for Madden 15. Obviously, real quick though, with the trio sky, I'm assuming it was basically what was it? You spread your line, crash line down, spy the DT, contain.
So it
Is
was a
that
little
it?
different. I didn't base a line so that I would keep my linebacker out right on that slot tight end or lineman, whoever you put out there.
Oh, okay.
I would spread and crash out because when that it didn't create a lot of pressure if the person would pass, but I was only sending 3, so I had a lot of coverage. Um, I would spread the linebackers, yes, and I would re-blitz the outside linebacker on the right, and he would come in, and I could take away the middle linebacker now, so you had one person going out, and he gets double blocked, so he takes away 2 people. He takes away the tight end and the tackle. Then I have 2 people coming in directly eating the guards, and the guards aren't fast enough. There's no guard in the game unless you had Gene Upshaw, and you didn't have him in the tournament to stop that. So that was just my own little personal thing that I lapped up. But you can, yeah, like you said, you can baseline, spread, crash down, spread your linebackers, and that's very effective setup as well.
Yeah, yeah. Obviously, and that's kind of my over analytical side. I want to get into all the details, but definitely, I think. But I hope what you guys get out of this is obviously, uh, it's not necessarily the specific setup that he's talking about, but it's the concept behind it. I talk about it all the time. I want to teach conceptually at this point in the season as opposed to factually. And what I mean by that is I want to teach you guys tips and things like that carry over year to year right now because this is all about prepping for Madden 15. And then when Madden 15 drops, we'll get into all those X's and O details. But obviously, you don't ever want to limit that. Obviously, that took him a long time to lab, and that's the idea that I want to get at really with this point is the fact that you have a specific defense for a specific situation because you knew that it was going to happen. You prepared for it, and you reap the benefits later.
Yeah. Yeah.
So But that's a little bit about the Mud Invitational. Obviously, I want to. If it was up to me, I would talk about that with you. I would talk about the game with you for a long time. But obviously, it's all about everybody else who's watching this. So, can you talk a little bit about? Obviously, for me, I kind of went through this literally probably 2 days ago. I was playing, and it was what we were talking about earlier. I took two really bad losses that I really was just upset with. I mean, because there was, I mean, we've all played that game of Madden where our corners drop every pick
Yeah,
possible, and we get tackled by our linemen, and it's just like you're just
it's
like
not
I
okay.
beat him by 30 any other day of the week except today, and
Yeah,
that happened to me 2 games in a row back to back, and it just kind of I literally like for like 30 minutes I sat in my chair. This is gonna sound really really stupid, but I literally sat in my chair. This is how mad I was at the end of those games. I sat in my chair and I just stared at the TV. Didn't pick up the controller. Didn't go on Twitter. Didn't go on YouTube. I just stared at the TV, thinking in the back of my head, what in the world was I supposed to do? Like I was just trying to figure out something that I did wrong. And it all came back to preparation, and I talk about it all the time. It's and we'll talk about it a little bit later in the show because I think you have a little bit of insight to this. But it's that 2 seconds after the ball is snapped that's going to define how good you do in a specific play. But I know for you, I'm sure that your short-lived tournament career has had some ups and downs, even as short as it's been. Can you talk a little bit about the lowest point that you've ever experienced in your tournament career and how you kind of overcame the difficult times that rise up when you get deep into the game like this?
yeah. So it was actually my first game in the Mud Invitational against Too Nice. I just was really struggling on offense. I didn't pick up on some things that he was doing. Like he was leaving a Deion Sanders out on the field, and I was running to the other side almost every time instead of running at a Deion who's going to get pancaked literally every like as soon as he gets touched.
Yeah, it's like
Uh,
49 tackling.
yeah, he's like so I was down 13-3, and he had ball, and this is third quarter, 2 minutes left in the third quarter, and he's just driving on me, and I'm honestly thinking it's a 4th and 2, and he decides not to punt, or 4th and 1, he decides not to punt. And he comes out in not like QB sneak like I thought he was. So I call a quick timeout. He comes back out in the same formation, and I'm thinking, oh my gosh, if he gets this, it's over. I'm not going to Florida. I'm the number 2 seed, and I just got knocked out on a live stream with however many, like hundreds of people, and it's over. And all of a sudden, I never use a free safety. I just don't do it. And I blitzed all my linebackers. He had one read that he had, and if he lobbed it over the top to his tight end instead of bulleting it, I'm done. I'm not here talking to you right now. And he throws a bullet pass right to his tight end on a streak, and I come up and snatch it with Dawkins. End up taking that game. I think it was 19-13 after I got a big safety. I got a huge safety on my A gap when he was back in his own territory. And so just overcoming that to making an adjustment that I wasn't necessarily comfortable with, but I knew was going to be effective against what he was doing is something definitely that I had to come and bounce back from because I thought it was over. I was screaming. I was about to break my controller. It was not a good feeling until I turned that game around.
Yeah, man, it's all about, and that's kind of what it was for me. The funny thing about my struggle was I played like 2 games, and these were against subpar players. They weren't anything special, and lost both of those. I lost the first one like 7-3, and the second one 14-16. And like I said, after that, I was just done. I was so mad, and literally just stared at the TV. And eventually, and this guy had been hitting me up, and he had emailed me, I don't know how long ago, wanted my gamer tag, and I was like, yeah, you know what? Sure, I'm all about playing community. Obviously, at the time, I'm thinking, this guy's, I'm thinking in the back of my mind, I'm like, I'll probably never play this guy because I don't ever have time to play anymore, and, it's probably never be anything. Well, I get a message from this guy, sends me an invite to play the game, and so I'm like, I really don't want to play. I really don't want to play. For some reason, I was like, you know what? We'll just play. I don't care. We'll just play. And I played that game, the entire game, just chilling. It was not intense. I didn't think of it like a tournament game. I didn't think of it like I didn't think of it. I didn't get uptight. I didn't even really. I mean, I played okay, but it wasn't like I played like lights out. And I was trying a couple new things. I was trying this motion snap user catch thing I'm working on. I was just trying some stuff like that. Anywho, turns out it's like 6-0, and he's running the Pistol A Strong Power, uh, and that was kind of his go-to bread and butter. Well, the Pistol A Strong Power was actually the play that I was struggling stopping in the defense. There's a long backstory, but basically I wasn't doing very well against Pistol Strong Power when I got beat in that tournament game. So I switched back to my bread and butter defense in this game, and I had never labbed against strong power on that specific defense because that specific defense was more of a passing situation-based defense. But I decided for the heck of it that I wanted to run it all game. Anyway, long story short, I end up going through and basically beating him. It was 6-7, and I could have kicked a field goal to win, but again, I'm thinking we're just playing around, so I don't kick a field goal. I was just, playing around. And anyway, he ends up getting the W. Come to find out, I log on to Mudhead like 5 seconds later. I'm supposed to confirm a score of 7-6 from the guy from this guy. I didn't have any clue that and so me not wanting to be a jerk about it, I went ahead and confirmed it. Then I went back and looked at what this guy was. The guy that I played was the top ranked player on the PlayStation 4 lobby, and his record was 20-0. And I think that sheds a little bit of light on kind of way I overcome it, and kind of the way that you overcame it as well, is the idea that sometimes we get overwhelmed by all the X's and O's and all the time we spend, and sometimes I get overwhelmed by the fact that I don't want to spend all this time playing a game if I'm not going to have success with it. And so I put that much more pressure on myself to play good in those games. And so kind of what you were saying, kind of what I did, when you just relax, when you slow down and you say, okay, lock up here, let me see how I can stop this, let me stop yelling at the TV like a maniac, let me actually try to adjust and fix the problem, as opposed to just making it worse by calling random defenses that I've never played before. And if you could just talk a little bit about kind of what I just said there, kind of expand on that if you would.
Yeah, so in yelling at TV like a maniac, you can one of my roommates was the only one in the house with me at the time. I asked my girlfriend not to be there because I didn't want to see her see me when I'm doing that kind of stuff. But I'm screaming at everything. I fumbled the first play of the game after a 50-yard run, and I lost it. He fumbled his first play after a 4-yard loss, and he got it back. So I'm just yelling at the TV, thinking EA hates me. They obviously don't want me to go to Orlando. And in that situation right there, I literally just calmed myself down and I said, "This is the game. I just lock up. I make a huge play. I scream. I go down, drive, score." And it's all about just keeping your composure in the sense that I've played coin games, wager games, whatever, where I've been losing, but it's about the next play. It's not about, oh, he threw a 90-yard bomb on a Hail Mary against me and mossed me. That's over. It's all about the very next play and having a short memory of whatever happened against you. And Beavers is an example. You did a great job. That's a punt return that I'll never replicate again in my life. And when you're down 10-0 like that, you see him in his interview. He's like, "I'm still getting ball at half. I have all my timeouts, and I have about 2 minutes left." It's not a big deal. He drove down, kicked 3, drove down again with probably a better drive than I had to win the game, and got 7, and put me in an awful position where 10 minutes ago, 13 minutes ago, I was looking like I was in the driver's seat with all the momentum in the world. And it's all about that you can flip around any game that you're in with the right adjustments, the right composure, and the right mindset.
Yeah, man, it's all about that mentality. It's all about, it doesn't do you any good. It doesn't. That's the thing. I keep going over this. I keep talking about it, and it always seems like it finds its way back into my head, but it really doesn't. It's that mentality. It doesn't do you any good to get mad at the game. Obviously, you want to have competitive juices. We're not saying, oh, I just got dotted for 50. No, next play, whatever. Obviously, I'm not talking like that, but getting literally so mad that you're not even thinking right. Obviously, I think that's what the best players do, and it kind of, as we saw, like as you just stated with your game, the way you turned it around was actually, take a deep breath, take a timeout, calm down, and just make a play and stop for people who play the game so much, it's not necessarily as much about thinking as it is about just playing and reacting. But one of the things that I think a lot of people get a lot of value out of with my show here is this story of mine. So I was, like I said, when I was up and coming in Madden 13, that was kind of my year that I really played a lot, and I would say that I played about an average of anywhere from 4 to 8 hours a day, depending on how much time I had to play the game. And I would play it, 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 and I played it so much, like it was, I literally like I could just reel off to you almost every play in the game. I mean, I was pretty good at Madden 13, but I think that as far as a gameplay standpoint, as far as being better at the actual game, being better at adjusting on the fly, being a better overall player. I think I'm a better player in Madden 25 than I was in Madden 13, even though I didn't spend anywhere near as much time with actually physically playing the game Madden 25 as I have with Madden 13. So I think that that's because I had that foundation of Madden 13. The basics I already knew coming into Madden 25, and all I had to focus on from that point was developing kind of my scheme, kind of developing my advanced tactics, how to counter things. But I had the basic knowledge of the game because of all the time I spent in Madden 13. And if you could just hit a little bit on how the basics transfer from year to year in this game.
Yeah, so the thing that I watched this week that I really want to touch on was Gibbs and Farrell's being interviewed for the ScoMo podcast and things like that. And they talk about bringing 9 in the box and having a numbers advantage against the run. That's something that doesn't go away. That's just basic football knowledge, and that's when we talk about a trio sky zone eating pulling guards. This is the first year that we've kind of, not necessarily the first year, but one of the first years that we've seen pulling guards just take over a game. And when you see those singles and all these things, those aren't going to be things that just disappear after this year. Those are going to be things that are around for a long time now if they keep these things in the game. Like when we talk about a curl flat being taken away by having both a flat and a buzz zone to take away the flat route and the curl, those are things that transfer from year to year. And knowing what these zones stop, what man stops, it's not going to change too much unless all of a sudden, when there are some adjustments you can make next year against out routes, but if you leave a stop 2-man under, somebody's going to throw an out route on you almost every play unless the new computer AI adjusts it for you. So these are things that you can know, and there's backed off coverage of cover 3 or cover 4, and press coverage is going to be cover 2, 2-man under. It's not something that changes, and that's why I think that elite players usually stay elite. Now there are some people who are just great at one Madden to the other, but they typically aren't just a straight bum who loses every game the next year if they were good the year previous. It just doesn't happen.
Yeah, man. Example of that is Tyronto, Madden Challenge. He was Madden 12 Challenge winner. Haven't heard a whole lot as far as he hasn't won any tournaments since then. But I have heard that he's been very respectable, very good player in those tournaments. And this was coming from a guy that's got a similar, not necessarily exact storyline that you have, but a very similar one in the fact that he basically played the game casually for the most part. Really, he didn't play it anywhere near probably as much as you and I do. But the fact that he was able to adjust and he had a pretty good scheme going in made him that much better. And now he's just continuing to refine. Obviously, he hasn't won a tournament since then, but it's very difficult to win tournaments on a consistent basis with how many good players are out there. But it is not difficult to stay effective in the game. It's not difficult to, keep that kind of, basic element of tournament style that I think that you've developed, and I think that people that watching this show, I think that hopefully if it's their desire to truly develop it, that there is opportunities for that if they would only just put in the time. Like you said, like I've said both, the amount of time that you've put into Madden 25 is leaps and bounds beyond the amount of time that other people have put into the game, and that's why you're so. That's why you're so successful, and that is why I've had some success as well because I put in a lot of time on the game, and I think that that's a huge point moving forward. But one of the things that I'm really most excited about with this show, and this is kind of my Madden nerd dumb kind of trait, if you will. But what I really want to ask you, and I've been excited about this ever since I watched your game. What goes through your head when you develop offense and defensive schemes? What kind of things do you look for? What are some tips that you can give guys that really don't have the backdrop that you do Madden wise? How they can figure out, how did you figure out that the buck sweep was so good, or how did you figure out that the fade against off coverage is so good? What was the process that kind of led you to knowing that stuff?
Yeah, so we kind of touched on it a little bit earlier in the show, and it was all the games that I played this year. So I didn't just come on the next gen and find magically buck sweep. It was actually around when the stiff arm glitch was around, and people would grab an Eric Dickerson, who had probably the best stiff arming in the game, throw some Donald Penns out there, and you weren't stopping that. You could have two people there, and he would stiff arm both, and he'd be gone. And I was so fed up with these people running it, and I was running the KC book, and I was running Strong Power doing the same thing. So it's not like I'm a saint. And I found this buck sweep, and I didn't know what was going on. I didn't know why it was so effective, and I just hopped in practice mode the next day, and I just looked at it, and I was like, why am I getting 70 yards like against the computer, which is like a basic 4-3 2-man under? And some people are just great at coming up with their own things and finding these great, like Los is a great tournament player who comes up with all of his own stuff that trips tight end and serious motor runs is Los's offense exactly.
Great point, man. Great point. I had failed to mention that, man. Los, I actually haven't mentioned him in a while, man. He's a really good player. I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah.
Sorry about that interrupting you, but
just
that kind of
watching
hit me.
tournaments, like him and Serious Mo are tough. Just another level that hopefully maybe one day I can reach, but not even close now. But just there's some guys that are great at finding those things, and I'm much better at finding defenses than I am at finding offenses. But it's not stealing, it's in the game. If somebody is running something that's effective against you, you can take that, especially if I play somebody with the Carolina book, and I can recognize Carolina, like if they run the wide trips tight end slot buck sweep, and they grab a play that's just killing this defense I'm running, I'm going into practice mode after the game, and I'm trying out that play for myself. But then defensive-wise, I really like to take away what's good this year. So I really like the nickel 2-4-5 blitz it's great against the pass. It's probably my favorite blitz in the game. Obviously, that's why I run it almost every play. But what people don't realize is where the blitzing linebacker is set up shoots through a pulling guard spot and eats a guard. And there's a flat zone coming down that eats another guard, and my user can go over the top and stop a strong power buck sweep. Guaranteed it's not 100% because it's user versus user, and that can get a little touchy. But I've also developed a guide for other people out of the 4-6 where we do a lot of the same things, where we're trying to take away out routes, curls, a lot of things that a lot of people run that is really effective and really angers a lot of people who don't know how to stop it, with still creating pressure. Because I think that if you're playing somebody who's very good, unless you're dropping everyone into coverage except for one, they're gonna pick you apart pretty easily, just with knowledge of all the routes. When you have 4 zones on the field in the user and they have 4 receivers, they're probably gonna win that battle almost every time, unless you just make a nasty user play. So it's all about stopping what's effective this year, because you can't just tailor your defense to creating all this pressure, and then all of a sudden you have all your zones on the left and nothing's on the right, and they're just hitting you with out routes all day, and then you're mad because all they did was run out routes. It's not their fault that they're beating you.
Yeah.
So it's all about stopping what's good.
Love what you said there, man. It's not their. I echo that a million times over. It's not their fault that they're beating you. We talked about that last week. The idea that if I have a play that beats man-to-man coverage and you run man-to-man coverage, I'm just gonna win. It's not EA screwing you over. It's not. They could make a game that literally looks exactly like the NFL and people would still complain. But I guess the bigger picture here is this. If you actually want to be good, you actually want to put in the time, listen to what we're talking about, listen to what he's saying. The idea that you play, this is a perfect example. Okay, so there is out of the nickel strong, there is a play that sends 2 pass rushers and you can get a guy free off the left edge. However, that play is very weak against, for example, if I'm playing Tweazy and I want to set that blitz up, what's Tweezy going to do? He's either obviously, I think his whole offense is opened up at that point because you could throw the fade on the left because I'm in zone because you have to run it from zone, or you could run buck sweep because I don't have any blitzers coming from the right side. The mentality that obviously it's good to find plays like that. Obviously, it's good to find those power plays. I think this is something that S. Gibbs echoed in our interview as well. If you guys go check that out. But basically, the idea that if your scheme A is getting beat, have that scheme B, C, and D to stop those specific opportunities, because it does you no good. I love what Farrell said on Twim. I don't know how many Twim episodes ago this was, but I think this is just a really good point. And this was more of an offensive tip, but basically they were saying, um, this guy could have 25 plays to beat two-man under, but if the defense calls cover two sink, then they're screwed. The mentality that you have to prepare for everything, and I love the way you're coming from with the idea that okay, what is this guy doing that beat me? Let me go figure out what he's doing, and if it's something that I think that I could implement into my game, why would I not do that? If it's a seamless, if it, obviously if you have to change your playbook for it or you have to change your scheme for it, then maybe that's not the best avenue. But the idea that okay, I'm an Arizona playbook and I run the gun spread. Who knew that the zona seams was a good play? Oh, Z Farrells did. Look, he beat me with the zona seams. So now what do? I go look at my playbook and find, oh, would you look at that? I got the zona seams. So now what do you think I'm going to do? Well, you think if I get a man read, I'm probably running the zona seams because it's that mentality. It's that mentality that you learn from your mistakes. You learn from your failures. You learn from other people. Don't be so caught up in yourself that you're closing yourself off to all this other access. I get so tired. I was reading a thread the other day. I don't even know what the topic was, but somehow it got into this big debate as to the fact that I am a better Madden player. I am a better Madden player because I have the integrity to not run buck sweep because buck sweep is good. And I'm sitting there thinking in the back of my head, I'm like, what sense does that make? It's not like they're going to give you an honorary award at the Mud Invitational because you know what? I decided that I'm not running buck sweep because that's a good play. If we were going to do that, then I don't even know why we practice, why we're even doing. The idea is to get as good as possible, and to get as good as possible, it's essential to use the plays. For example, let me give you a quick example, and this is another point that I want to really kind of drive home here because I think that this is going to put a lot of that kind of crap to bed. So, for example, I know how effective the buck sweep is. Okay, and this was back in my really low tournament time where I was really mad that evening, and anyway, one of the games I went through and I decided, okay, I'm gonna run that buck sweep. I'm just gonna I'm gonna teach everybody a lesson at how good the buck sweep is. I got beat 48-8 because I ran the buck sweep every play, and I got mad on defense, and so I just ran commit out of quarters 3 deep and decided I didn't care, and 48-8. The proof is in the pudding. The proof is in the results. Tweazy can run the buck sweep better than me. That's a fact. And it's exemplified because he has more stuff off that. Because I guarantee you that if Tweazy only ran buck sweep, then Beeves would have shut it down. Or if he only ran the fade, then Beeves could have shut it down. But the complementary aspect of an offensive defense scheme, what Tweazy's getting at is obviously you have that good play, you have that power play, but having the ability to go to something else is essential because you have to adjust to what your opponent is doing.
Exactly.
All right, so next point in our interview, guys. I know we've been going along here. Just bear with us. We only got a couple more questions for Tweazy. But Gary Vaynerchuk, a guy that I am really fond of, and I think that he's a great businessman. But I think that a lot of the things that he does, it transfers into Madden. It transfers into anything you do, really. But he was being interviewed about his new book called Jab, 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 Right Hook, and it's actually on the New York Times bestseller list. And they were asking him, you're not really that famous. You're not really that popular. How did you sell a book that well? And so his response was, well, I sold it for 9 months before it came out. The idea that he prepared and built relationships and worked towards selling the book, towards the launch, as opposed to launching and then doing all the work. Can you talk a little bit about kind of how you're preparing for Madden 15 already right now in June before the game is even dropped?
Yeah, so and I just want to apologize to anybody who likes me streaming because it's probably not going to happen very soon. I actually just kind of taken a step back from playing all these games all the time that I really like during the year, just simply because I get more out of it now of creating going into practice mode and creating new schemes, new blitzes that I think might be effective next year. Granted, I got a little look in at what's going to be coming out in Madden 15, and some of my stuff might still work, some of it might not. But if I have all this plethora of blitzes and all these new coverage ideas and schemes and all these things, and say 50% of them work, I now have probably a great scheme that I can just start up against people and give them a lot of problems early on in the year and then develop as I'm going. But you can't just hop in Madden 15 and be like, oh, I'm just going to start playing games, and then I'll figure out what's effective. So typically from year to year, blocking schemes are very, very similar on offense, so your defense can sometimes translate pretty well, and especially if you have a lot of different blitzes and a lot of different formations, you're bound to find a couple that work pretty well from year to year.
Love what you said there, man. I really, I couldn't agree with more with what you just said there. So, for example, last season I did a back to basics series. We were talking about, how you get back to the basics, how you have a zone beater, a man beater, three-headed rushing attack, all that basic stuff. The way we play the game. The idea of scheme development for the game before the game dropped, and so then I went through, and as I was practicing, the one thing I was working at getting better at was post snap reads, and this is kind of what I want to get your 2 cents on as well. But basically, the idea that you're working now and reaping the benefits later. The idea, I love what you said. You want to develop something now so that when the game drops, you already have something. You're rocking, you're rolling, you're playing games, and then you have the opportunity to play those games like we talked about earlier. You have the opportunity to play those games because you've already educated yourself in the basics of the game, so you could log on, play a game of Madden, and feel pretty confident that you're going to be able to hold your own. But what also you also get out of playing those games is learning more and more about the game, learning more and more about what's effective without even having to do the practice work because you've already done it in Madden 25. Because most of the, obviously there's little nuances that don't transfer year to year, but the majority of the game does transfer, and you got to take advantage of that. But one of the things that I'm personally working on right now for myself and my offense and kind of things that I'm doing is getting better at the post-snap read. I think it's pretty easy to get good at pre-snap reads. I think it's pretty easy to, tell after the play is over, tell what happened. But during the play, actually reading the defense and the idea that the defining moment in a game is the 2 seconds after the ball is snapped, the 2 seconds that defines whether you are getting sacked, whether you're going to scramble, whether you're going to throw a pick, or whether you're going to dot your opponent. Those 2 seconds are essential, and they define the game, in my opinion. And I think that is the only thing. I think that is the only thing right now that I am really strong in because I put so much work into it. And I think that that's kind of the thing that has saved me throughout the year, actually being competitive, because I have such a good understanding of different keys. I could tell you like you have to snap the ball hits the quarterback. By the time the ball hits the quarterback, in my opinion, you should know the basic shell. You should know whether it's a cover 3 or cover 2, 2-man under, whatever it is. And then what I've been doing a lot as well is getting better at reading specific points on the field as opposed to receivers. So like I'll look left, and by looking left, I'll be able to see 3 or 4 receivers. And what I'm more so looking at than looking at the receivers is looking at where the defense is. So for example, if you're in a cover 3, you have the 2 flats, you have the 2 hooks. So I'm going to see, okay, there's only one guy on the left side of the field. So now I know, okay, well, I have on my play, I have this corner route that goes to the left side. So I know that that's the read that I want to hit. But I wouldn't be able to do that if I didn't put in so much time at working at that 2 seconds. And can you talk a little bit about kind of what you think about that? Is that a decent point, decent mindset to have? Something that is kind of big on development as far as long term. Kind of, obviously for the tournament community, it's even tougher with all the exotic adjustments that you can make pre-snap and and all the different shells that you could throw at somebody, and you could really mess with somebody's head. You could drop cover 2 out of a cover 4 look. You could drop cover 4 out of cover 2 look. And I guess I'm getting at here is, kind of hit a little bit on what I just said about the 2-second post snap, defining process of the game.
Yeah, I definitely agree a lot with that. I think that yeah, like you said, anybody can make those pre-snap reads. If people tell you that backed off coverage is a certain shell and press coverage is going to be something like one of two options, you can make those reads pretty easily. But what separates top-level players and what separates people who are struggling and just winning games and losing games every now and then, just kind of just going with the flow, is those post-snap reads. Because out of my play-action tight end wheel out of Carolina, which is my favorite passing play, I'm looking at the right side, and it's a play action, so it kind of zooms into the quarterback for a second. And when that starts to when that animation is done, I've seen the right side of the field, and I know exactly where I'm going. Or I've seen that it's man press, and I know I'm going to my unbumpable in on the left. And I've also seen, because it's very popular now to drop your D lineman into coverage, you have to look for those sorts of things to where you see all these zones in the field. You don't see a linebacker who is playing an end lurk in a curl to flat, and he picks you and goes to the house. Like, it's all these things that those post-snap reads are the most important thing in the game when you're passing, hands down. You obviously have to know your routes and everything like that, know your hot routes and everything that you just did, but if you don't make a read, if they do a disguise cushion and their yellows are dropping 10 yards deeper than they normally would, and you try and throw that Z-spot post, you get lurked, and you might have lost the game. You gave them an extra possession that they didn't deserve because you didn't make your correct read and know what you're supposed to go to.
Yeah, man, that's a great point. That's really what I want to drive home. I mean, that is obviously that's top level. Obviously that's hard. I'm not trying to say that any of this is easy. I'm not trying to put on a front and act like Tweazy did this by watching some YouTube videos and staying up a couple nights playing some Madden. It was a long time before obviously you actually started to see some results. I'm sure that it took you a while. Obviously, depending on how much you play a day, depending on how much you put in the time, that's going to depend on effort. Over under. I say I probably put in over 300 hours on Madden 13. It sounds like a lot, but when you love the game and when you actually physically just sit down and play it, how many times have you started playing some Madden and next thing you know it's like it's like 8 o'clock in the morning, you gotta get up to work because you stayed up all night playing the game.
Man. Too many.
Yeah, man. I still sometimes struggle. Like literally, like last Friday night. So I had this class, and I had stuff due in the class, and it was due Sunday, and I had all this stuff going on all day Saturday, stuff going all morning Sunday, and so I was going to do the homework on Friday night. Well, then I got hit up to play a game. I played the game, and then I got logged up on the auction block on Ultimate Team trying to figure out if I'll ever be able to finally reach a 99 overall team. And literally, it was next thing I knew, it was 4 o'clock in the morning. I had done no homework and ended up making for a very long day today. But I guess the idea that I'm trying to get at, guys, is it's not undoable. It's not impossible. Obviously, you need to have priorities. Obviously, we're not saying that Madden has to be your life, but we are saying that Madden has to be, if you really want to be good, it has to be a substantial time allotment for the game because you really have to get into the game and work hard at it. But Tweazy, I love talking, man. I love talking Madden with you. I love picking your brain. I'm sure we've gone longer than we had both hoped. But if you could do me one last favor, if you could just give, if you had one thing, like if you sat down and you had this guy sitting down and this was going to be the last thing you ever told him about how to become a top-level Madden player, what would you say to him, and kind of where would you go with that conversation?
I think the main thing that I would say to him is it goes two ways. I think learning from your losses, and I think that's something that everybody says, but it's actually learning. Know why that guy just beat you. Know why you ran a cover 3 and he threw a fade against you, and he's user catching all the way down the field. Know why he just did that. Don't just say, oh, this game's stupid. Tweazy just ran buck sweep on me every single play, and I didn't stop it, so obviously this game's broken. And then practice mode is your best friend. It is a chance for you to try anything that you want. Get 2 controllers. Don't just have one and have it a base coverage. Get 2 controllers and try and find a way to stop your offense. Figure out what somebody else could do to stop you, and then make an adjustment. So I'll run buck sweep against Trio Sky or 4-3 under Sam Sharp. I'll run it against that, and that's why it's been effective this year, because I know exactly where I want to cut when I see Trio Sky come out. I know where I want to cut, or I know the adjustments that I want to make. I might need to motion somebody in to take away one of the pulling guards getting eaten and have him as somebody running in front of me, or I might need to do a bunch of different adjustments. It's free. You can try a route against you can try the fade route against a yellow route on the left and see if you can snag it on him real quick, like I did against Beavers. And he put his deep blue safety in a yellow, and he had him manned up. And I still knew that I was confident enough to throw that out and catch it, and not get picked off or not have a catch tackle animation where I dropped it on a third and long. And that's something that you have to do.
Yeah, I definitely agree, man. I could, literally, man. I mean, I wish we could just go back and literally just skip the question asking, and it only be you talking and me just in the background be like, yes, 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 because literally, man, that's what it is. That's what it takes. Gosh, man, get in practice. Well, I'm so sick and tired of this. I'm literally, and it's not because we don't want to help. It's not that, guys. It is not that we don't want to help and give you resources to get better, but it's the fact of the matter. Because it's like this. I love posting videos about Madden. I love talking about Madden. But how can I actually help you get better? You have to do that. I can give you the best plays in the world. I could teach you verbatim what Tweazy did. He could tell you verbatim what he did. But the reality is, what separates the Tweezys of the world from the Johnny Averages from the world is the fact that the Tweezys of the world go into practice mode and they say, okay, this beats 2-man under, but does it beat the cover 3? Oh, okay, it beats the cover 3. Now what happens if he starts adjusting? I need to know my weaknesses so that I can make them my strengths. And that's what makes Tweazy such a good player, and that's what makes all the good players such good players. Is it's not necessarily that their plays are so groundbreaking. It's not necessarily that their reads are just flat out crazy good. It's they've worked hard enough and they know what's going to happen before it happens, and because of that, they set themselves up for success and make their weaknesses become a strength. But Tweazy, man, again, I can't thank you enough for coming on the show. At this point in the show, guys, we're about to close up here. But if there's anything that you are, kind of doing, I know you said you stream a lot, but that's probably going to die down a little bit. You're trying to, get back in the lab and work harder and get ready for the new game. But if there's anything that you want to plug, anything that you're doing right now that you feel could, impact the community in some way, shape, or form, feel free to share it, man.
Yeah, so like you said, I'm streaming. It's mostly on the weekends now because I do have a job during the week. I might start streaming during the week a little bit. I don't know. Just getting ready for this My Head tournament in Orlando. But it's twitch.tv/BU_Tweazy. Just same as my gamer tag if you guys ever want to hit me up on PlayStation. I've been taking a little less challengers now just because the game's gotten a little less exciting for me in terms of head-to-head competition. But I'm sure I can squeeze in anybody for a game before the game's done and Madden 15 launches. Twitter at Trevor Bocian, Bocian is my last name. You can hit me up on there if you guys have any questions. And the last thing, I already put out an ebook with one of my good friends. It's me, Beezy. We put out a 4-6 ebook. If you guys ever tune into Slump City, is a big streamer right now, and you'll see him. I'd like to think that he's winning a lot more games now than when he was calling cover 3 every play.
That's you?
Huh?
That's you? That's your defense?
Yeah, that's our 4-6 defense.
Man, I'm telling you what, man. It's literally in the last 2 weeks. I learned last week that Shopmaster was on Madden Nation. I learned today I learned 4 days ago who Slump was. And then I learned today that the reason that he's destroying people in Madden Ultimate Team is because you put out that 4-6 guide. Man, that's great. Hey, guys, real quick, what I'm going to do is, it just popped in my head now after hearing you say that. I'm going to put a link to the ebook. You can check that out. Obviously, guys, you may not want to spend money, but I'm telling you right now that No matter what the cost, I know just from talking to Tweezy here, he knows the game. He's going to make you a better player. He knows next gen Madden. I'd say he knows next gen Madden better than anybody in the business right now. Talk to him, hit him up, check out this guide. I'm telling you right now, I guarantee you right now that this guide makes you better overnight, especially if you put the work in. So we'll have a link to that in the description below.
Yeah, I just also want to put it out. I know it's tough to shell out money, especially because the game's kind of dying down this year. But we are doing a thing where we'll discount the next ebook that you buy for Madden 15 50%. So if you put an investment now, you start learning some of the tips and tricks. Then you buy that next ebook for however much is 50% prorated. You'll have that fire coming out really early because it's gonna be done very fast. I'm not gonna get much sleep those first couple of weeks. But yeah, I just want to throw that out there because I know it's tough to want to buy an ebook this late in the year where there's a lot of stuff already out there. But we have some very, very unique stuff. We try to make it not anywhere close to what anybody else is running, but still make it effective.
Yeah, man, that's great. That's great, man. Again, like I said, I can't thank you enough for taking this time out of your day, man. Meeting you was just a blessing in disguise, man. I had no idea how knowledgeable you were. I mean, I knew you knew stuff, but I love talking in depth. I love talking Madden, and I love this show. Guys, again, we wanna thank Tweazy. We want to make him feel welcome to the community. So if you guys could just do me a favor, there will be a link to his Twitter in the description. Remember, it's at Trevor Boshin. You can just send him a thank you message for coming onto the show on Twitter. I know he'd appreciate it. Obviously, you can hit him up on PlayStation, and I think that you guys would be doing yourself a big-time favor if you picked up his ebook. Remember, that will be in the description below as well. Guys, thanks for listening to the podcast today. I really appreciate getting the opportunity to share Madden with you all. And if you guys could just, if you found this video helpful, if you found what we talked about today to impact you in some way, shape, or form, and you say, oh, I want to see the next episode, or I want to follow the podcast, you can do that by hitting the subscribe button on the bottom left of your screen. And guys, to wrap up this video, there's three key takeaways I want you guys to get from Tweazy here. The idea of adjusting. Don't just sit in a cover two when they're running 4 verticals. Switch it up. But obviously you don't want to change your entire scheme. But obviously be able to adjust to what your opponent's doing. Secondly, practice against what your opponents are doing in practice mode. Take your losses and actually learn from them by practicing what you're getting beat by in the practice mode option of the game. And thirdly, don't whine, actually learn. Don't just complain because something is quote-unquote overpowered. Actually learn how to adjust. Actually learn how to stop it by doing the first 2 tips. And if you do that, you could be as good as Tweazy. Tweazy, man, thanks a lot for coming on the show, and we'll see you guys next week.